The Unity spire hovered in silence above a dying white dwarf star. It was the heart of the Galactic Accord, a towering spiral of alloy and light, built over centuries as a symbol of unity between hundreds of species. Within its central chamber, known as the Circle of Reason, leaders and envoys from every corner of the galaxy gathered. Each species had a seat, a voice, and a vote. Every voice was meant to be equal, but today, one seat stood empty. The seat of humanity. The chair itself was plain, stainless steel with blue fabric. A Terran flag, now faded and dim, was projected just above the headrest. No ambassador sat in it. No message had come from Earth. No explanation. The silence had lasted 6 months. At first, other members of the Accord thought it was a communication delay. Then they believed it was internal trouble, Earth politics, perhaps a coup, or economic collapse. But as weeks turned into months, humanity's absence deepened. Their embassies were abandoned. Their colonies sealed their borders. Trade ships vanished from known routes. The mystery became fear, and fear had found a voice. High Preceptor Zalak stood in the center of the chamber, tall, elegant and draped in dark red ceremonial robes. He was the spiritual and political leader of the Zelari ascendancy. His species had long mistrusted humanity, and today his voice rang out with calm, persuasive power. "We must not mistake silence for peace," Zalak said, his 4-fingered hands lifted to the chamber. Humans were always ambitious, driven, unpredictable. What species walks into war with its own kind a dozen times and survives? What species builds weapons that can crack moons, then demands to sit beside peaceful races as equals? Murmurs rose across the chamber. Some nodded. Others frowned. Zalak continued. "They have not disappeared. They have withdrawn. That is not a retreat. It is preparation. For what? We do not know. But I say, we must prepare ourselves." The message was clear. War was not declared, but it was being whispered into the hearts of the galaxy. A small blue shuttle pierced the glow of the station's docking ring. It moved quickly, requesting urgent clearance. On board was Commander Ellen Voss. She hadn't been to Unity Spire in nearly a year. She had been sent on a long-range diplomatic mission to a new outer colony in the Mora Cloud, unaware of what had happened during her absence. Her last contact with Earth had been 2 weeks ago. Routine check-ins, then silence. Ellen stood tall in the shuttle's narrow corridor. She wore a simple black diplomatic suit, now slightly worn from travel. Her eyes were tired, her face pale, but her resolve was firm. The docking doors opened. 2 Accord officers stood waiting, an avian from the Yuli species and a scaled, red-eyed Zaran. Their expressions were unreadable. "Commander Voss," the Yuli officer said, his voice crisp, "you are to report immediately to the Accord Council chamber." Ellen nodded, trying to push down the rising anxiety in her chest. She hadn't expected a celebration, but the coldness in their eyes chilled her. Inside the chamber, the murmur fell to a hush as she stepped in. "Commander Voss," Zalak said, his voice carrying across the floor, "a human returns finally. Shall we ask her what her people hide?" Dozens of eyes turned to her. "I don't know," Ellen said clearly. "I came back to the same silence you did." Gasps rippled across the chamber. Some didn't believe her. Others pitied her. She wasn't here as an envoy anymore. She was a relic of a vanishing species. "I will find out what's happened," she said. "Earth would not abandon the Accord. We need answers, and I intend to get them." Zalak smiled thinly. "Then may the galaxy pray that you find them quickly, before the rest of us are forced to decide how to act. Without you." The session was dismissed. Ellen stood alone. Her seat was still empty. But now the galaxy had someone to watch. A single human trying to explain the actions of an entire silent world. She didn't know where to begin, but something told her. Earth hadn't gone dark by accident. She would find the truth. Commander Ellen Voss sat in a quiet corner of her temporary quarters aboard Unity Spire. The room was small, lined with neutral-colored panels and soft lighting. The standard design for visiting diplomats. But she was no longer just a visitor. She was the last known human on record in Accord space. Her people had vanished, and she had no idea why. A projection floated before her, a hollow blue sphere pulsing softly. It was the Terran Diplomatic Corps' secure communication beacon. Usually it linked directly to Earth's network. Now it spun in silence. No signal, no update, no command. She tried again. Command authorization, Voss, Terran Envoy, Delta 17, requesting open channel to Earth, Terran Council, or any registered human frequency. The beacon pulsed, then blinked red. No response. Elen leaned back and exhaled. It was her 6th attempt in 24 hours. She wasn't surprised anymore, just tired. Her door chimed. She stood and opened it to find a familiar figure, Ambassador Thello, of the Yuli people. Tall, covered in shimmering blue feathers, Thello tilted his narrow head with a polite greeting. "May I come in, Commander Voss?" he asked. Elen stepped aside and nodded. "Of course, you were always one of the sane ones." Thello chuckled lightly, though his eyes stayed serious. "That's a shrinking group these days." They sat across from each other. Thello folded his wings behind his back. "Things are getting worse," he said without delay. The Trade Council from Raal sent ships to patrol their old trade lanes with Earth. One of them was fired upon by a human-designed drone, automated, but fully armed. Elen frowned. "That can't be right. The drones were deactivated long ago." "The galaxy thinks otherwise," Thello said. "And Zalek is using it. He claims it's proof that humanity is preparing for something dark." Elen leaned forward. "Zalek wants war. That much is clear. He's stoking fear while pretending to preach caution. And many are listening," Thello replied. "He's building a coalition. Not just the Zalari. Several other systems are joining his pact of vigilance." "What is that?" "A loose agreement to begin monitoring, intercepting, and if necessary, neutralizing human assets in shared space." Thello paused. "In plain language, it's preparation for war." Elen stood and paced. "This is madness. Earth must have had a reason. We don't cut ourselves off from allies without cause." Thello watched her carefully. "You still believe your people had noble intentions?" She stopped. "I don't know what I believe anymore, but I don't accept that we've become monsters in 6 months." He stood to leave. "Then I suggest you start proving it, before Zalek convinces the entire galaxy otherwise." After Thello left, Elen sat back down at her terminal. She accessed the Accord ship registry. Most human embassies were dark. Border colonies were marked non-responsive. Trade convoys, missing or recalled. But one outpost, an old resupply station on the edge of the Merexis Drift, still showed signs of life. Outpost Theta 9 status. Unverified intermittent signal. No official traffic in 92 days. Last known use, Terran Diplomatic Courier Station. Elen marked it. A starting point. She walked down to the flight bay of Unity Spire. The Accord still permitted her access to one shuttle. The Vigilant Light, a small, fast diplomatic ship, meant for solo missions. It wasn't armed, but it was quick and built for long-range communication. As she stepped into the cockpit, the dockmaster, a squat rust-colored Verdan named Cleese, stared at her from behind thick goggles. "You sure you want to go poking around ghost stations, human?" Cleese asked. "Bad things happen to people looking for answers." Elen gave him a dry smile. "Bad things are already happening to people ignoring them." The ship detached from the docking ring. As Unity Spire faded behind her, Elen looked out at the black stretch of space ahead. Somewhere out there, her people had made a choice, and whatever that choice was, it had frightened the galaxy. But she wasn't afraid. Not yet. The Vigilant Light slipped quietly through the Merexis Drift, a cold, sparse region of space known for its magnetic storms and debris fields. Elen Voss sat in the pilot's chair, eyes fixed on the navigation readout. The ship's sensors buzzed faintly, trying to track signals through the static interference. Her target was close. Outpost Theta 9. This place had once been a relay station for human diplomatic traffic, nothing more than a mid-sized satellite, crewed by a handful of technicians and diplomats. After the withdrawal, it went dark, but now it was pinging, weak, irregular, almost like a heartbeat. Approaching station perimeter, the ship's AI reported. "Caution, Minor structural instability detected. The outpost floated in front of her, damaged, partially powered, and silent. Panels were missing. A section of the hull had been scorched, but it wasn't destroyed. Someone had tried to keep it alive. Ilan activated a docking maneuver and latched the shuttle to the station's outer port. With a hiss of air and a dull clang, the airlock opened. She stepped inside. The lights were dim, flickering every few seconds. Dust floated in the air, lit by the occasional blue flash from exposed wiring. Emergency systems still functioned. The place was abandoned, but not long ago. Ilan moved carefully through the corridors. Her footsteps echoed in the silence. She passed empty bunks, a shattered console, and scattered data chips on the floor. Near the communications core, she found signs of a struggle, scorch marks on the walls, and a broken security drone lying still in the corner. Something had happened here, and someone had tried to cover it up. She accessed the terminal. The main system was offline, but the backup still held data. Manual override. Voss, Terran Envoy, Delta 17. The screen blinked to life. Several logs had been deleted. Others were damaged, but one file remained intact. Timestamped 3 months ago. Message draft. Not sent from Administrator T. Juno 2, Terran Central Command. Earth to anyone still listening. Outpost Theta 9 is holding out, but we're alone. The Accord doesn't know what we're doing, and I don't think we do either. We received partial orders before the blackout, something called Protocol Eclipse. It's locked behind clearance. None of us have. All I know is, we were told to wipe our diplomatic databases and cut ties. I don't agree with it. This isn't how we operate. This isn't us. I'm keeping this record in case someone ever comes looking. If Earth really believes isolation is the answer, they better pray the rest of the galaxy stays patient. Ilan read the message twice. Protocol Eclipse. A blackout order. A full diplomatic shutdown. Why? Before she could search deeper, the terminal screen went black. A high-pitched chirp echoed through the room. Her wrist comm buzzed. Unidentified vessel detected. Approaching fast. Ilan ran back to the airlock and jumped into her shuttle. The sensors picked up a ship coming out of stealth. Small, fast, not of human design. It was a Zolari scout. Transmission incoming, the AI said. Zolek's voice came through the speakers. Commander Voss, interesting to find you here. Alone near an abandoned Terran outpost, accessing restricted data. Some might see that as a threat. Ilan narrowed her eyes. You're spying on me. I'm protecting the Accord, Zolek replied. And I see now that you're not just lost, Commander. You're hiding something. The transmission cut off. The scout ship veered away, not firing, but making its presence known. A warning. Ilan sat back in her chair. The pieces were forming, but the picture was still unclear. Earth had issued a secret order, Protocol Eclipse. They erased their presence, severed ties and vanished. The Accord, afraid and confused, was now being steered by voices like Zolek's. She wasn't just searching for answers anymore. She was being watched, and whatever Earth had planned, someone was willing to stop her from finding out. She set a new course, deeper into uncharted space, toward a forgotten relay network rumored to be used by the old Terran Deep Space Corps. If Earth had left a message for anyone, it would be hidden out there. The stars beyond the Merexis drift were quiet. Cold, vast, and unvisited for decades. Commander Ellen Voss stared into them as her shuttle, vigilant light, cruised toward an old, long-forgotten sector known as Deep Black 9. Once used by Terran Deep Space Scouts, the sector was now officially unlisted. Few even remembered it existed. But Ellen had found a lead buried in a corrupted file back at Outpost Theta 9, a set of coordinates tagged Directive Archive Echo Relay. If Earth left behind a message, this was the place. Her ship glided past dark asteroids and scattered metallic debris, the remnants of ancient scout stations. Then, finally, the relay appeared, floating at the edge of a dead moon. It was a narrow black structure, shaped like a blade and anchored by a barely functioning energy core. The relay looked ancient, yet somehow untouched. Unregistered Terran device detected, the ship's AI announced. Echo Relay Alpha 5. No traffic recorded in over 40 years. Ellen docked carefully. The airlock creaked open. Inside, the relay station was small and cramped. One room lined with blinking servers and backup batteries. Thick dust coated everything. A faint hum came from the core. On a central console, a light blinked, orange, waiting. Ellen approached and pressed the command pad. The light turned green. The screen lit up. Echo Relay Archive engaged. Identity confirmed. Terran diplomatic officer. Voss, Ellen, clearance accepted. Playing final directive message. Council of Earth static buzzed, then cleared. A holographic image formed. 5 figures seated behind a steel desk, wearing the insignia of Earth's council. They looked tired, worn, and serious. One, a woman with silver hair and a deep voice, spoke. To any surviving human diplomatic officer receiving this, if you are watching, then Earth is still hidden. That was the intention. Months ago, our intelligence networks confirmed what we had long feared. The Accord is unstable, not because of war, but because of collapse, technological overstretch, resource depletion, political corruption. Species across the galaxy are teetering on the edge of internal ruin. We have seen it before, in us, in others. Our simulations predicted a system-wide collapse within the next 5 decades. The Accord is not ready to face it, and worse, it will look for a scapegoat. Humanity was rising too quickly. We were a convenient enemy, so we chose Eclipse. We shut everything down. We vanished by design, not to threaten, but to survive. We are working on Project Foundation, an initiative to preserve knowledge, stabilize AI, and rebuild quietly without war. We hoped our absence would cool the flames, not feed them. If you found this message, Ellen, then the galaxy is already turning. Use what you know. Remind them who we are, not with fear, but with truth. End transmission. The message ended. The screen dimmed. The relay shut itself down. Ellen stood in silence. Her heart pounded. She finally understood. Earth didn't run. It withdrew to stop something bigger, but it hadn't worked. The galaxy was afraid, and people like Zalek were turning that fear into action. She downloaded the message and turned back toward her ship. As she sealed the airlock, a familiar voice came through her comm. Commander Voss, came Virak's voice, her old Elimin ally. I found your shuttle trail. The Accord is about to vote on the Pact of Vigilance. Zalek is calling it a defensive necessity, but I think they're preparing to strike first. Ellen's pulse quickened. How long do I have? 2 days, maybe less. You need to get back to Unity Spire now. She fired the engines. This wasn't just about finding the truth anymore. It was about stopping a war before it began. She had the message. Now she had to make the galaxy listen. The vigilant light burst out of deep space, like a spark across glass. Commander Ellen Voss sat tense in the pilot's seat, hands gripping the controls as Unity Spire came into view. The massive orbital station spun slowly in the cold dark above a dying white dwarf. Hundreds of ships circled it, warships, transports, diplomatic vessels, all watching, waiting. The council was gathering. Zalek had called for the final vote. If passed, the Pact of Vigilance would become the Accord's official response to humanity's silence. It would give member systems full authority to seize, search, and if they felt threatened, destroy any remaining human infrastructure. That meant embassies, satellites, outposts, and possibly Earth itself. Ellen's shuttle raced toward the docking bay. She didn't wait for protocol clearance. The baymaster barked angry warnings over comms, but she ignored them. As the ship landed, she grabbed the small datapad containing Earth's hidden message. She wore no formal suit, only her black flight jacket, marked with the old Terran crest over her chest. Security met her at the hatch. "You're out of order, Commander," one officer said, raising a hand to stop her. "I have a priority message from Earth's Council," she snapped. "You want to throw me in a cell, fine. But listen to this first." They hesitated. One of them nodded. "Follow me. The Council is already in session." Ellen was led through winding halls into the Circle of Reason, the heart of the Galactic Accord. The chamber was filled, ambassadors seated in rows, species from every corner of the galaxy, watching silently as Zalek stood at the center. He looked regal in his crimson robes, his silver eyes glowing under the tall lights. "And so we have no choice," he was saying. "We waited, we asked. Humanity did not answer. This silence is not peace, it is preparation for domination. If we wait longer, we risk everything." Applause from several delegations followed. Others looked unsure but silent. Zalek raised a hand to signal the vote, but the chamber doors opened with a metallic hiss. Ellen entered. Dozens of heads turned. Conversations stopped. Even Zalek paused, narrowing his eyes. "Commander Voss," he said coldly, "you are out of order." Ellen stepped into the center of the chamber, holding the datapad up. "You want to know why humanity withdrew," she said, voice firm. "You want to understand the silence, then listen." She pressed a button. The hologram activated. The Council of Earth appeared again, calm, tired, and honest. "We withdrew to avoid collapse." "Not our collapse, the Accords. You were spiraling. Your governments were failing. Your alliances were breaking. We saw it coming and chose to step back. Not to abandon, but to survive. You feared us because we were growing stronger. You thought we'd dominate. We wanted to help, but we knew we'd be blamed. So we stepped away. Protocol Eclipse was not a threat. It was a retreat, so we could build something better without being dragged into your fall." The message ended. Silence followed. No one spoke for several seconds. Then a quiet murmur began to ripple across the chamber. Zalek's voice cut through it. Words on a screen. "That is what you bring. A recording. You expect us to believe this changes anything." Ellen turned to face him. "I expect you to remember why this council was formed. You say we should be afraid of what humanity has become. I say we should fear what the Accord is becoming. You want war based on silence. I offer truth." She paused, then looked around the room. "This is your choice. You can believe fear and strike, or you can believe that peace is still worth one more chance." The council was divided. Some ambassadors turned to one another, whispering. Others stared silently at their data screens. Then came the vote. The tally flickered across the central display. Pact of Vigilance, 142 for, 134 against, 29 abstained. It had passed barely, but just as the chamber reacted, a chime rang across the room. "Unidentified vessel approaching," came the voice of the station's AI. "High-speed entry vector. Terran design. Unknown classification." The holographic map showed a sleek black ship entering orbit. It moved unlike any Terran ship known to the Accord. Smooth, curved, silent. No weapons visible. No transmissions sent. Then a single message broadcast across every screen in the chamber. "We are humanity. We did not leave to conquer. We left to heal. We have returned. Not to rule, but to rebuild." The lights dimmed. The chamber fell into stunned silence. Zalek said nothing. Ellen closed her eyes and let out a breath she had held for too long. Humanity had spoken. The chamber of the Galactic Accord was silent. Not the tense, waiting silence that came before a vote, or the cautious hush after a speech. This silence was different. Heavy, awed. All eyes turned to the central projection above the council floor. The black, unfamiliar human vessel hung in orbit, just beyond Unity's spire. It didn't broadcast weapon systems or shields. No squadrons escorted it. It moved slowly, gracefully, like a visitor, not a conqueror. The Accord's central AI spoke again. "Terran vessel requests clearance. Identification. ECS Solstice. Diplomatic envoy. One representative aboard." Zalek stood still, his silver eyes locked on the screen. He didn't speak. His expression was unreadable. The chamber doors opened with a soft hiss. Commander Ellen Voss turned toward the sound. Everyone did. From the hallway beyond stepped a tall man in a simple charcoal gray suit with no symbols, no rank, no armor, just a silver pin on his chest shaped like Earth. His hair was dark, streaked with gray. His eyes were calm and steady. He walked alone. He reached the center of the chamber, where so many had spoken before him. He looked up, scanning the crowd slowly, and spoke in a clear, quiet voice. I am Representative Malik Doran of the Earth Council. We return not as rulers, not as enemies, but as witnesses to a future that nearly broke. No fanfare, no threats, just words, simple and deliberate. He continued, we left because we saw the signs of collapse. The Accord is fracturing, not from war but from rot, greed, fear, distrust. We knew we could not stop it, not from within. Whispers moved like wind across the chamber. Doran paused, letting the silence breathe. But we did not vanish to hide, he said. We vanished to rebuild. Earth has spent the last 2 years working on preservation, knowledge systems, sustainable technologies. We prepared not to fight, but to teach, if allowed. He looked around the room, stopping briefly on Zalek. We come with open hands. You may refuse us, you may strike, or you may listen. The choice, as always, is yours. Then he stepped back. He said no more. The room remained quiet for several seconds. Then a small voice, Ambassador Thello of the Yuli, spoke. Why now? Doran turned slightly. Because one of ours never stopped believing you'd listen. And because time is running short. Ellen felt her chest tighten. She hadn't cried once since this all began. But now, standing there beside a man who carried Earth's voice and watching the Accord truly listen, something inside her softened. Zalek stood. The pact of vigilance has passed, he said flatly. That vote still holds. It does, Ellen replied. But the reason for that vote is gone. Humanity is no longer silent. We've answered. Now the Accord must decide what it truly wants. Some looked to Zalek for guidance. Others turned away from him. In the hours that followed, debates filled the chamber. Angry, cautious, hopeful. But no weapons were raised. No orders were given to fire on the solstice. Instead, envoys requested meetings. Delegates asked for data. Questions replaced threats. By the next day, the vote to formally open a new diplomatic channel with Earth passed, narrowly but peacefully. Zalek did not speak again. His power had not vanished, but it had cracked. His voice no longer controlled the room. Later that evening, on a quiet terrace overlooking the white dwarf star, Ellen stood alone. Representative Doran approached. You did more than deliver a message, he said. You reminded them who we were. I wasn't sure it would be enough, Ellen said softly. It was, he replied. Because you came back first. The stars above shimmered. The galaxy was still wounded. Still fragile, but for the first time in a long time, Ellen believed it could heal. She turned back toward the station's glowing lights. Humanity had returned, and the galaxy was watching.